on to this webinar organized by the IM division of the Academy of Management. We hope to discuss today with you about the reviewing process, which is a very important part of the scholarly process, both in preparing conferences and in journals where your work ultimately may be published. We have a number of people participating today, but as you probably saw from the automatic Zoom information, we are recording and we intend to share it on YouTube and other places later, such that this becomes a research source that we can share with PhD students later on. Okay, so that's why it is being recorded. So be aware it's basically public domain. So reviewing is an essential part of the scholarly process, and it is something that junior scholars need to learn to engage with. And we need it for preparing the conference. We need your input on the quality of submitted papers. I have a simple slide here that illustrates the process. Basically, if you are an author, you submit your paper. That paper goes into a big database, which the conference chair in this case, or perhaps in other situations, a journal editor manages, right? The conference chair then assigns the paper to the reviewers. In the case of the AOM, that's largely driven by keyword matching. So, by the way, keep attention to what kind of keywords you choose when you submit your paper, because that has an influence who might be your reviewer. As a reviewer, you then write a review, and that review consists of two parts. You provide feedback to the author, and you provide feedback to the editor. The author feedback to the author could be like a page, maybe even longer, if depends on how passionate you are about the paper. And the feedback to the editor probably should be rather brief, just short and to the point. The editor or conference chair then does two things. First of all, they have to make a number of decisions. Which paper is accepted for the conference? Which paper is shortlisted for an award? And then the feedback to the author is passed on to the author with the intention to help the authors improve their work. Okay, so you're in a way interacting with the author, but you don't know who the author is, and the author doesn't know who you are. So in this way, the review process aims to be as neutral as it can be and provide as honest feedback as it can be. We ask reviewers to be polite and friendly and supportive, but at the same time, since they don't know who you are, they will consider this your piece of work as opposed to your as a person. Okay, so that's a basic introduction. And I'm very pleased we have two experienced editors who both worked preparing conferences and have actually both held editorial roles in the Journal of International Business Studies, which is in international management, sort of the journal to aim for publishing. And they will share their insights with us today. After their presentations, we will proceed to Q&A. So you can put some questions in the chat if you'd like, and then we take them up after the presentations. Okay, so the first speaker is Grazia Santangelo of Copenhagen Business School, who's actually been the receiving editor for JIBS for a while, and is also the chair of the IM division, the AOM, at this time. So she's involved in many different things in our academic process. Over to you, Grazia.
Thank you, Klaus. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so thank you and welcome also from my side as chair of the International Management Division. And I would like to briefly walk you through the reviewing process along the line that Klaus has already outlined, and more specifically reviewing for the AOM and for the IM division. So this is the agenda that I would like to follow during my talk. I will first make a distinction between reviewing for journal as opposite to review for conference, like the Academy of Management, because in this contrast, I think it's clear what expectations are from potential reviewer by the IM division chair, which this year is Klaus. And then I will walk you through the standardized IM division review form, and specifically I will spend some time in talking on how to communicate it to author and to the program chair. And last but not least, what is in for you if you sign up as a reviewer. So let me move on. So reviewing for a journal versus review for a conference. When we review for journals, so the purpose of the review process is basically this potentially is a multi-round process. So when you review for journal, basically you're assessing whether the manuscript has potential to make into the publication. And if you assess that that is the case, then you will engage in a conversation with the author that will go over a number of rounds of review. So paper, in order to survive this first screening, but also the increasing their potential to make it through the review process, needs to be especially polished and possibly have already been friendly reviewer. Who is the audience of the reviewer? Is the editors who has identified the reviewers and will collect the inputs from the reviewer and will combine this input with his own, her own reading and decide whether to invite the paper for an R&R or not. The other audience is the author, who, if invited for an R&R, will work to address the comment and basically detail how he has addressed this comment in response to the review report. But let's now see how this is different from reviewing for a conference. So in this case, the review process is actually a single-stage process because a paper submitted to a conference is either accepted or rejected. And as a reviewer, you will assess the paper in its current form, whether it is appealing for the conference program, whether it adds value for the conference program. So if you are a conference attendee, what is the kind of presentation of paper you would like to see in the conference program? And this is a possibility for you to have your say. There is a high variation in how a submission can be polished because it's still work in progress. And this how the standard should stand depends on the conference specific guidelines. So it's always a good practice to have a look at the reviewer guidelines. Who is the audience in this case? The audience is the program chair, so it's Klaus this year, who will use the reviewer to make acceptance and rejection decision and compile the program. Klaus will get roughly around 400-500 papers, and he has a very short time window, so may not go through all the paper. And so it's very important that the review report is sharp, well done, and concise. The other audience of the reviewer is the author, who will look at the feedback and may or may not decide to implement it, because again, he will have his presentation at the conference and he will get other input, and then after this process, he will wait which way to go in revising the paper to proceed for a journal submission. So as you can see, the two processes are different, but also the goals of each process are different. But let me now walk you through the IM division review form. As you can see, the form is organized in different sections. There is a section that provides an overview and a section that gives the opportunity to reviewer to provide detailed comments. What I'm going to do, I'm going to walk you through the different section of the form. So let's start with the section that provides an overview of the evaluation. Basically, there are 4 dimensions that are evaluating: the theoretical contribution, the methodology, the analysis, clarity of writing and presentation. And each of these dimensions can be ranked along a 6-point scale from not applicable to ideal. So this is a general indication of the quality of the paper, and is an overview that the reviewer is providing to the division chair for interpreting the detailed comments. But let's look also at the other part of the form where there are some specific information for the program chair. As Klaus mentioned, the program chair will make some decision about who to nominate for awards, for example. And here there is a section where the reviewer can indicate whether he believes the paper is good enough to be nominated for an award and run for it. Also, the reviewer will recommend whether to include the paper in the conference program or not, and which type of session the paper should be included. There is also a box where the reviewer has the opportunity to provide comments for the program chair. And I'm going to get into this box in a minute. Just let me complete this overview. And there is also another box where the reviewer can provide detailed comments for the author. So what I would like to do now is to focus on these boxes. So how to communicate with the program chair? Rank the different dimensions that using the range of scale that is provided. Remember, this is early stage work, so you are not evaluating a manuscript for publication in a journal. Highlight strength and weakness, what is novel, what you like, and also check for a fit with the IM division mission, because I believe you want to see, when you go to the different session as an attendee, you want to see paper that resonate with the IM division. So we rely on you as a reviewer to indicate whether the paper is actually within the fit of the division mission. What is less advisable to do is copy and paste the comment for the author into the program chair box. This is redundant. The program chair again has a quite demanding task, so try to be concise. A couple of sentences that summarize your overall evaluation of the paper is what the chair is looking for. Also, your comment should be self-explanatory without forcing the program chair to go back to the paper or go back and forward between this box and other boxes in your evaluation sheet. What about the author? How to communicate with the author? First, have a positive and constructive tone. We want to have a civilized conversation, so say what you like, and also be developmental, how the paper could be improved. Focus on major issue and try to be structured in your reviewer. So, for example, you can have a small paragraph on what you like, then another paragraph on the weakness, and then articulate your comment in positioning, framing, a contribution, theoretical development, methodology, and so on. Things that less advisable to do, avoid listing all the issues that you find the paper from page 1 to the end. The advice is that you first read the paper, you make notes, and then you summarize the main comment you have in 3-4 points, instead of giving onto the nitty-gritty stuff. So before going what is in for you, I hope this may clear how to walk through the evaluation sheet and what actually you will be expected. It is some work, but I think there is a lot to learn also. And this leads me to my last slides, what is in for you. It's an opportunity for learn what's cooking in the field, because you will get exposed to papers that are that have been submitted to the division, is research in progress. They are related to your area of expertise based on the keyword that you have selected, as Klaus was mentioned, because review are allocated to paper based on keyword matching. So it's a way to open the window on the field where you are working on. Also, is an opportunity to practice on how to review paper, to then replicate the exercise for journals, and possibly be also get invited to join an editorial review board. But it's also a good exercise because it gives you an opportunity to look at the paper written by somebody else in an objective manner, so you can be more distant, and so you can also see maybe some mistakes that you make and avoid replicating this mistake when you write your own paper. So it's a way to actually learn and improve your own research. Last but not least, the IM division recognize the best reviewer, which are the top 10% of their own reviewer, with an IM division best paper award. I have the small certificate on the bottom right of my slides. And this is something that you can put in your CV. You will be acknowledged on during the award session at the IM division, and we also have some circulation of these news also on social media as the division itself. So it's a win-win situation. You help the division to draft a good program, a program that you can use as an attendee of the conference, but it's also a lot to learn as a scholar, and also on the short term, the possibility to get some points for your CV. So that's it from my side, and I turn over to Becky.
Thank you, Grazia. I forgot to mention that you are also an editor of Global Strategy Journal, but I think your strategic positioning of the poster behind you made that clear to everybody in the audience. Okay, now over to Becky. Becky is at the University of Toronto. She's held various editorial roles. She was on area editor-in-chief. She's still on the board of the AIB, and I forgot which other journals you've been editor for in the area of entrepreneurship, and I believe you've also been in similar roles. Becky, over to you.
Okay, thank you. So let me see if I can get my slide going, and then share my screen. So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, same title. Thank you for inviting me. This is something that I spent a lot of my life doing and have for many years. And so, it's something I enjoy talking about. We've structured this session so there's lots of time for questions and answers. Sometimes, your actual questions may not match with the material that we've come to talk about. So, feel free to go beyond that. Now let's see if I can get this slide to progress. There we go. Okay, so as a reviewer, you have a dual role, whether it's for a conference or a journal. Your one role is to help the program chair and the editor make decisions about manuscripts, and your second role is to help the authors improve their manuscripts. And both roles are really important to the international management, international business field as a scholarly field. So I'm gonna, I think Grazia and I might have got our signals crossed, but there also is a question, well, what's in it for me? I was sitting at a lunch at an AOM conference, and I heard some young scholars that were sitting beside me said I would never review for a conference unless I was sure to get a best reviewer award, because it's just a waste of time for me and I can't put anything on my CV because of it. And I was kind of incensed because here they were at the conference. Someone had obviously volunteered the time to review their paper, and it was incumbent on them to give back. So, giving back to the community when you expect them to be reviewing your work seriously is important. But there are personal benefits, and as Grazia said, a lot of them have to do with learning. You're looking at early stage manuscripts, and you'll get examples of things that, what to do and what works and what doesn't work. You can stay up to date with the field by looking at the new knowledge production in it. If it's for a journal and there's subsequent rounds, I've always found it really useful to see what more established authors do in terms of responding to reviewer comments. We always get those reviewer comments if we're lucky enough to get an R&R, and sometimes, particularly if you're starting out, you really don't know what to do. But if you review for them, then you'll see examples of those, and that's helpful. And finally, you can see the other reviewers' reviews, and you can see the editor's decision letter. And I find that still really useful. I found it even more useful when I was starting it out, because I always would compare my review with the other people, with the other reviewers, so that I could think, where was mine deficient, where was mine strong, how could I become a better reviewer? So certainly there's learning benefits. There are also reputational benefits. Reviewing, unless you do get, they were right, unless you get a reviewer award, it's probably not going to make it on your CV, and your dean won't be impressed when it shows up on your annual performance review. However, although it's largely invisible to the community, your activity is very visible to the editors and program chairs and reviewers. Your review is rated, is scored on a 5-point scale. And so people who do good reviews tend to be asked or invited back. And so this good impression that you're making with people that are well placed in the field can, I think, and I've seen it happen, can translate into invitations for participation in panels, consortia, special issues. Basically, you're highlighting your ability to be analytic, your ability to know a field, the thorough and thoughtfulness that you consider ideas, and those are all good things. But of course, to reap that reputational benefit, you have to do it well. One of the things that is really important in reviewing is adhering to ethics. All academic associations have code of ethics. The AIB has a particular journal's code of ethics. And they spell out what you can and what what's wrong and what's right. And this is from the AOM code of ethics. And you can see that really what they tend to focus on is impartiality. So there are no conflicts of interest, and confidentiality. So if you are a reviewer, you want to abide by these principles. So what are some dilemmas that you can run into? These are 4 that occur fairly frequently. The first is that you're pretty sure you've seen the paper before. It might even be published in a different journal, or you've reviewed it for a journal, or you've seen someone give the paper at a conference, or perhaps the author has even asked you for written comments on it. So what do you do in that case? And the answer is you talk to the editor or the program chair, because there may well be a conflict of interest. If someone came to me with that dilemma and they had just seen someone presented at a conference, I wouldn't think that was a conflict of interest, but it's clear it is a conflict of interest, and it is clearly against the AIB code of ethics if you provided written feedback on a paper to then review it. So that's one. So you may think that conflict of interest and impartiality have to do with undue favoritism towards a particular author or paper, but it can also be related to unfavorable attention to it. You're the expert in the area, and so you may well think that the paper that you've been assigned to review is competing with yours in some way. And so, you know, there may be an incentive to be really critical of it on that basis. If you find yourself even going down that road in your thoughts, that's something that to immediately talk to the editor about, that impartiality has to reign supreme. And even though you may have expertise, if you're biased against the paper because of some of your own work, then it's probably better if somebody else reviews it. You may also find that you lack relevant expertise. And in this case, I would also talk to the program chair or the editor. They are probably quite aware of the expertise that you have, and they may have selected you for one piece of expertise. Well, they know, like, let's say you know the method very well, but you don't know the topic. You haven't worked on that topic before. They may have chosen you for your methodological expertise, but if you're unsure about that, then that is something to talk to the editor or the program chair about. And then finally, the other dilemma is, and this happens to people, and it can be frustrating and really frustrating, is that the paper that you've got is just so weak that you just don't know where to start. And so in that case, you know, you need to, it helps just to really structure the way that you go through it. And you know, the buckets that Grazia talked about in terms of contribution methods, if you can, you know, if you can separate the paper into those sort of meaningful clusters of things, then that may help you understand what the authors are doing. So finally, just some reviewing do's and don'ts. You know, be reliable. Get your review in on time. The whole system is based on time. And if you're long, that makes it long for everybody else in the reviewing process. And so, you know, get it in on time, be thoughtful and thorough. Also, one thing that's not in the AOM Code of Ethics, but is in the AIB Code of Ethics, is not to be two-faced about your review. So, and that would be, you know, you have to give developmental feedback to the authors. You want a constructive tone, and so you're very flattering to them, and you really emphasize what you like about the papers, but you think it's so bad that you really don't make any decent suggestions for them. But then on the other hand, in your private notes to the editor, you are extremely critical and, you know, basically say that this paper is hopeless and doesn't have a chance. That's really hard then for the editor to do something with that. So your tone to the authors has to be constructive, but it also has to reflect your views of the paper. It's not enough to, maybe for a conference, but for a journal, it's not enough to talk about strengths and weaknesses. You also want to explain why they are, because an author may not understand your line of thinking unless you spell it out for them. You want to be user-friendly for editors and authors, and this includes things like numbering your comments, clustering your comments, say by contribution, methods, conceptualization, or, you know, whatever the relevant clusters are, so that people can readily understand what you're saying and why. And then finally, of course, offering suggestions for improvements. What you don't want to be is disrespectful or sarcastic. You don't want to assume that you know the author's data better than theirs. You want to avoid getting offended if your suggestions aren't followed in this. This can be either they're not followed in a subsequent review round, or that the decision editor hasn't prioritized your comments in their decision letter. And that can be frustrating if you've spent a long time on the review and you think you've made great points, and another reviewer's points are prioritized. That's sort of the name of the game. The editor is probably looking, is looking across the reviewers, is looking to maybe a bit lax in trying to find diamonds in the rough papers that they can, that they think that can become publishable. And so, it's important to keep that in mind, that the authors are seeing suggestions from 3 reviewers, and in the next round, since they know their data better than you, they may opt to go with a suggestion that the editor or another reviewer has made. And finally, don't rush the review. I let a review take over at least 2 days. A review usually takes me 2 days to do, so I might start it one day, sleep on it, and then finish it the next, just because there are lots of emotions involved. There can be anxiety about your own performance. If it's the first time you've reviewed for a journal, you can be worried that you lack expertise or that your review won't be as good as other people's reviews. You can get irritated with the authors if their writing is unclear and you really don't know what they are doing. And so, not rushing the review and trying to keep emotions out of the way can be really helpful. So I'm going to stop sharing there and invite you to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. I think the part on dilemmas or conflicts of interests is particularly interesting. Those are issues that all of us are facing on a frequent basis. Those issues come up, and the general advice is, if in doubt, contact the editor. If you recognize there is a conflict of interest, the authors, then usually you shouldn't be reviewing it. If it's someone, there may be some exceptions but then you should discuss. Definitely let the editor know, especially in journals. The first question that came in also picks up on the ethical challenges. Tatiana asks, in journals, you often have an option to exclude certain reviewers or to tell the editor that you wouldn't want those reviewers, which authors sometimes want to do because they feel particular authors are biased against their work. Is that same possible for conferences? The answer is basically no, because the system is not set up in that way. In the AOM, the reviewer allocation happens in an automated format and is based on the keywords that you put in. Okay, that means you're unlikely to have 3 experts exactly on your topic. Actually, my experience with the AOM and other conferences is the paper you're assigned are much more loosely related to your own area of expertise than it is for a journal. Because for a journal, the editor thinks about the paper, reads the paper, and has their own ideas with trying to find the most suitable reviewers on different aspects of the paper. For conferences, that is not the case, and therefore also the option for excluding doesn't exist, but it's also less relevant because it is very unlikely that the reviewer you get is someone who you have encountered in other conversations, unless it's a very niche area that you're working with. So it's something basically I wouldn't be too concerned about. Grazia or Becky, do you want to come in on that?
Well, I'll just say that in my experience, authors are not good at knowing what reviewers will be critical of their papers. So, I mean, authors in the journals that I've been editor at, then authors can suggest reviewers. And I think out of probably 1,000 cases, there's only been 3 where the suggested reviewers give the paper more positive recommendation than I do. The editor this is different for conferences, but for journals, the editor knows the pool of reviewers. They can be excellent scholars, but not good reviewers. They can be not give it the time. They can be late. They can be, there's a whole bunch of things to do. So when your paper comes in, if somebody, well, first of all, if somebody is really busy with reviews, I can't assign it to them just because of their workload issues. But you have to trust someone in the system. And I think just based on the data I've looked at over the years, I would trust the editors, because if you can't trust the editors, you're kind of sunk. And the editors know the reviewers a lot better. Like a lot of novice people will put in like the most famous person in the field as a reviewer. And that person may be an excellent reviewer, but equally they may not be a good reviewer. And they may not just have the time to do it. So I don't know, maybe Grazia or Klaus, you have other views on that, but I would say use that facility judiciously.
Yes, just I want to add, going back to the reviewing for conference, since we are having this webinar, the submission system has opened today or yesterday, Klaus. So we are inviting submission, recruiting reviews. So would like to get back to recruiting for conference. Please be aware that the system will automatically match a free reviewer. So it's very unlikely that these all free reviewer can have some prejudice against your work. I mean, that is very rare that will happen. And so I think so you can be reassure about that if you like. But from the review point of view, because we would like to see many of you reviewing for the IM division, a suggestion that I would like to make is don't comment only on the part that where you feel more comfortable. As Becky has mentioned, you may be brought on board based on keyword in this case or specific expertise, but you are not required to be an expert on any part of the paper, and you actually can be clear on this, on the box that I show you, in this case to the program chair. If you go if you're reviewing for a journal, in the box, similar box that you will be available for you to communicate with the editor. So just comment, be constructive, be polite, be developmental, and focus on the area where you think you can better help the reviewer. An advice is to see the review process as a conversation among scholars, both in conference and during journal, because we are growing as a community through this process.
Okay, let's move to the second question I can see in the chat by Haisha and Yuan. What should we do with a good quality paper that doesn't align with the mission of the division to which it is submitted? Perhaps Grazia can answer that first, and then I'll.
Yes, I think there is a part of the form that I show you where you can actually flag that it doesn't align with the division mission. In any case, you can write to the program chair, it's a good paper, but it doesn't align. The idea is that we would like to have a paper, Klaus would like to have paper as division representative that align to the division mission, because good paper that do not align with the division mission then will create issue then when we cluster, Klaus again, we cluster the session together, and also the conversation within the session may be difficult to ongoing. Also, the author may get very little in terms of comments. So my suggestion will say, okay, good paper, encourage the author, but flag it up to the program chair saying maybe not included because you have like a different scale. You can say that definitely included maybe not. So maybe not including unless there is space, or let's not sacrifice a paper that fits better with the division mission.
Yes, I would suggest that it's basically the author's responsibility to fit that paper to the appropriate division. All the divisions have their mission statements and their specific call for papers out. So as a reviewer, you should flag it as such, and probably you give high scores on some issues, but give low scores on contribution to the division. And as a conference chair, then I will have to make decisions. And there are some things also at the end when I need to put together the sessions. If there's several papers on the same area, that's not really IM, but they make a nice session together, I might just accept them, right? So maybe there's some scope. But principally, as an author, you should think about who would be most interested in my work when you submit your paper. And that should be author's responsibility. As a reviewer, you should not second guess that. It's different for journals. Maybe I hand over for Becky, maybe some thoughts on what does JIBS do if author doesn't fit the journal's mission?
Yeah, well, certainly that comes up a lot at JIBS, where there's a statement of editorial policy online that people can look at, and it says sort of how the journal defines international business. And if you don't fit into, if the paper's not deemed to be international business, there would be a desk reject. So what happens is when it comes into JIBS, the reviewing editor looks at it and makes that decision. If the reviewing editor decides it is international business, then it goes to area editor, and the area editor may decide that it's not international businessy a lot. So by the time it gets to you as a reviewer, two people have kind of made the decision that it is. But that doesn't mean that you as a reviewer agree with that, and that would certainly be something to give feedback to in your comments to the editor. I think what is more useful, and this may be useful in the conference context as well, is the authors submitted it to the IM division or to JIBS for a reason. They thought that it was international business, and they're obviously not making that case persuasively enough. And so, one of the things that you can do is to say, it doesn't really seem like an international business paper, but, have you thought of framing it in this other literature, or have you thought of framing it in a different way, and it would highlight the contribution to international business more strongly. So that works in a journal where there's multiple rounds, but I could also see that being really helpful to the division program chair, who, if you point out that you have your doubts about the fit, but the authors could improve it, then that might kind of push it up more to the line of being acceptable.
One thing you can do as a reviewer when you have a paper in a conference to indicate what journal is sort of your benchmark as you're providing your comments, especially when it's concerned the positioning of the paper. So you could include a comment such as, I think journal X might be interested in your type of work. Or if you position it in this particular way, you may find that journal finds it interesting. If you want to publish in JIBS, maybe you want to emphasize these and these aspects in the positioning of the paper. That kind of comments could be included in your comments to the author. Yeah. Okay, so I don't see any further questions in the chat. Does anybody in the audience have a questions you want to raise? You could now get the chance to raise your hand or be silent forever. Let me then, if we don't have any further questions, we are just on time to round up. Let me just, I see it. There was a hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, everybody. I was just going to give a hands up instead of raising my hand. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. it was very, very interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to apply to be a reviewer. Thank you very much.
Yes. Let me round up with one thought that is maybe on a higher level. As scholars, critical thinking is part of what we do. We apply it to our subjects we study, and we also need to apply it to our own work. We need to critically reflect over how convincing our own work is and how rigorous our methodologies are. And this critical self-reflection that is needed to be a successful scholar is something you practice by reading other people's work with critical eyes. Okay, and that is what you do in the reviewing process. So in that sense, I believe that reviewing is something you should do as part of your own competence development as a young scholar. And with that thought, I thank everybody for their contributions, and I hope to see your papers and your reviews in due course. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for putting it on.